Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me for this segment, we have Katey Bogue, Vice President with Nasdaq Private Fund Solutions, and James Burke, Chief Experience Officer with Nasdaq Asset Owner Solutions, to discuss increasing allocations to private investments and what it means for investors' data needs. Katey, I'm going to start with you. How is investor interest in private equity and more broadly private investments evolving?
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, we're seeing investors putting more and more of their portfolios to work in private markets every year, and it includes all the different private asset classes, whether it's fund commitments, co-investment, private equity, private real estate, or even direct investment into underlying private companies. And the driver of this is certainly the investment returns. The private markets have historically outperformed public equities, sometimes quite materially, and this can have a really meaningful impact on overall investors' portfolio. So we've started to see those allocations grow from the low single digits several years ago to upwards of 20% in several portfolios in recent years. So that's really why we've invested more in our capabilities for this space, because investing in private markets brings a lot of new challenges to the asset owners. They need data and tools that support those investment opportunities, and then understanding the performance and the impact of that to their overall portfolio. So we've done this in a couple ways. We acquired eVestment in 2017, which is a comprehensive database and analytics platform covering both public and private markets. And then last year in 2020, we acquired Solovis, which is a true multi-asset portfolio monitoring tool. And we're now working to bring both of those together with our fund secondaries platform so that we can offer a full suite of solutions to the asset owner space, from investing to portfolio monitoring and ultimately for liquidity.
Let's talk a little more about some of the unique challenges associated with investing in the private markets. What are some key differences that investors face, and how are we helping support them?
So it really starts with finding the investment opportunities. There are several well-known high-performing fund managers, but it can be difficult sometimes to get commitments in those funds. So we offer a database of managers across the space and their historical performance, as well as forward calendar functionality that shows who's coming back to market and when, to make it a little bit easier to identify those investment opportunities. And then we also have a very robust analytics tool that makes it easier for investors to obtain information from those managers and then really pull apart their performance and understand the underlying drivers. And then we're also working with some of the industry organizations like ILPA to really try to drive transparency and consistency around the data, not just performance data, but things like DE&I that are becoming increasingly important to investors as they're looking at this. And then there's the topic of benchmarking. So how do you compare the managers? There's a number of different benchmarks in the industry. None of the approaches are perfect. We have several on our platform, including our partnerships with Preqin and PitchBook. And then we also offer a PME module, which is a public market equivalent. And that enables investors to see the dollars they're investing in private markets. Had they invested them in the public markets instead, how would the performance have varied? And then once that investment's made, then the investor faces the challenge of how do you actually manage that as part of your portfolio. So I'll turn it over to James, who can talk a little bit about that.
Great. And James, welcome to the conversation. Once an investor has a single view of their portfolio in place to help tackle some of these problems, what's next? What kinds of insights are they getting that they couldn't get previously?
Thanks, Jill, and thank you, Katey. So to carry on with sort of the problems that this increased allocation creates, first, there's the transparency problem, gaining insight into the underlying investments in a fund and seeing how those investments drive your performance. And that problem is endemic to the asset owner world, but it's especially challenging to solve holistically across public and private portfolios, particularly in the current market environment where individual portfolio companies are often outsized drivers of returns on the private side, and then are typically held across the public and private books by managers post-IPO. Then there's long-term cash and allocation management. As private markets exposure increases, it creates additional near-term and long-term liquidity pressure on the rest of the portfolio. How will you fund near-term commitments? How much capital should you commit to private markets to hit your rising allocation targets over time? Could your private portfolio be self-funding 5 or even 10 years from now? Our portfolio analytics platform was built by allocators to solve these problems. We provide visibility into the entire multi-asset class portfolio using a flexible investment model that tracks investor-level investments as well as underlying fund holdings data across the public and private portfolios. This multi-level ownership model is coupled with robust liquidity modeling, configurable multi-factor risk model, and forward-looking pro forma and cash flow forecasting tools to help investors tackle the challenges associated with significant private markets allocations. Now, once an asset owner has that solution in place, you immediately get the benefit of seeing everything you own in a single portfolio, in a single system across public and private assets, making it easier for asset owners to focus on managing their investments, not their data. You have the ability to run time-weighted and money-weighted performance at the fund level, inclusive of a variety of performance methodologies, ex-post risk statistics, PMEs, and more for both individual investments and for any composite grouping that you wish to see. You can analyze an individual manager's contribution to their asset class composite, run composite performance with and without a managed overlay program, or visualize how quickly GPs within a given vintage year have deployed out all their committed capital. In addition, you can then model the impact of increased allocation to private markets. Say you're looking to increase your private markets allocation by 10% over the next 5 years. We offer modeling tools, including a configurable Takahashi cash flow forecasting model to help forecast your future allocation versus your target. And with all of your data in one place, that analysis is viewed in the context of the total portfolio.
Yeah, and one thing we're really excited to bring to all of this is being able to look through the underlying deal level performance information. Historically, you knew what funds you were in, how much you'd invested, how much you'd committed, what had been called and distributed, but everything was really at a fund level. And with the integration of the portfolio monitoring and our private markets capabilities, we can give investors the ability to measure performance at the underlying investment level. So you can see not just how your fund is performing, but then what is the performance of the underlying deals and how is that driving that fund performance.
James, I like what you said about asset owners' jobs being managing their investments, not their data. You mentioned briefly that you provide technology and services for investors looking to manage their portfolio more effectively. How do the services supplement the technology?
That's right, Jill. So a big part of what we offer is a team of analysts to help collect, aggregate, and maintain data for asset owners that don't want to do so in-house. PDF file delivery, generally posted on a lag to a secure portal, is still the dominant mode of information delivery for private markets and for many public market alternative managers. And the effort level to corral all of that data is high. The industry trend that we've seen is increasingly to outsource some or all of this work because the economics of the technology investment required to do so efficiently and effectively just don't work for individual asset owners. Using our services team for data collection enables LPs to spend more of their time analyzing their investments, staying on top of cash, and reporting on the performance of the portfolio, and most importantly, sharing insights with their stakeholders. We're also working with our clients to get data directly from their fund managers rather than relying entirely on the PDF reporting mode. Earlier this year, we launched our contributory data efforts that enables fund managers to push data through our platform directly to their investors on a one-to-many basis, making it easier to facilitate that manager to investor exchange of information.
Katey, you mentioned earlier that we are now integrating these capabilities with our fund secondaries platform. Can you talk about how this is helpful to investors?
Sure. So one of the primary differences between an investment in public equities versus an investment in private markets is really around the liquidity. You can sell a public stock or a mutual fund investment generally whenever you want, but on the private side, you're usually locked into those fund investments for like 10 plus years. And it can make it really difficult if you need to get out of a position, if you need to rebalance your portfolio, if you need to change your allocations or your strategies. So the only way to do that today is to find another eligible investor to buy you out of that position. And it's a very slow manual process. It's highly negotiated. It can be very expensive. So through our fund secondaries business, we're making it a lot easier for investors to put those fund positions up for sale, get bids from approved buyers, and then execute the transaction through our platform in a much more technology-driven manner. And we also think simplifying this process will open it up to more investors to be buyers of positions in the secondary market, which can allow them access to funds that they perhaps did not originally invest in. So we're really excited about how this capability can evolve over time.
All right. Katey, James, appreciate the insight. As we can see, Nasdaq Asset Owner Solutions is the institutional industry's only comprehensive suite of solutions, uniting the most influential institutional data with true multi-asset class portfolio analytics to deliver transparency, insights, and decision support for achieving your investment objective. You can find out more information by visiting nasdaq.com. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.